Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with more Japanese deep dive into some modern Japanese cinema this time around. Two films I managed to check out for the first time recently thanks to some streaming services, which is great because they've been films that we really wanted to check out. Already released by Third Window in terms of the UK. I'm talking about Yamaguchi's Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes and River, one released in 2020 and the other one released in 2023. So two films that are based around a 2-minute kind of window of a kind of loop or time travel based kind of concept. Both handle it very differently, but both have similar premises of 2 minutes and what do you do with those 2 minutes in terms of the kind of a time travel loop type thing. And this is a director that I'm not really familiar with television work, but he's got a bit quite famous and quite well known for these first two films of his, and he did a couple of short films behind, and I think he is doing a third entry, I think very soon, to kind of cap off this kind of anthology of basically a 2-minute kind of time travel kind of idea concept essentially. And it's really cool to see some modern Japanese films. I haven't had a chance to see many new ones. There is some new kind of Japanese new wave kind of movies that I do have access to in the collection, and ones that I really want to kind of explore, dive into, but just finding the right moment, the right time. And I've heard very, very good things about both of these films. As mentioned, they are both available on the Third Window releases. Now, this double bill review is more of a suggestion than an actual review itself. I really kind of want to push the kind of my suggestion and kind of my positivity and my kind of impressions of these two films, and definitely good to go and check them out, whether it's on the streaming services, whether it's officially on the Blu-ray, and to kind of give you just a bit of insight into what I think of them. And I was pleasantly surprised and delighted and how well these films were, and how impressed I was in terms of how creative these films ended up being in terms of single locations, simple concept, but just really, really fun to watch. These are both for like an hour and 20, give or take. I think the first one was actually done during COVID, if I'm not mistaken, being released in 2020. So I'll start with the first film in terms of Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes, and it has a very simple concept of a basic premise of the film is essentially you've got a cafe location and you've got this Mac PC, which basically can see 2 minutes into the future. This kind of monitor ends up becoming a past kind of monitor, and we have another PC ends up becoming the kind of the far distant future, and they kind of trick it into doing an infinite amount of kind of 2 minutes, 4 minutes. A very bottle kind of concept in terms of a character which discovers this thing, he's really weirded now by it, and it's only 2 minutes into the future, and he's sort of acting out what he said to himself 2 minutes in the future. Essentially, this kind of weird kind of back and forth, and this kind of the idea of playing out what you've already saw, and this idea of kind of trickery as well can be kind of presented in terms of, oh, I'm going to ask this person to my rock band, I'm going to ask her for a date, and oh, it went well, it went really well, and he goes and does it, it doesn't, but because he lied in the past, entered in the future. So cause and effect, essentially, this idea of the past dictates the future, something that Twin Peaks and many time travel concepts have really explored. The idea is if you've seen something in the future, you think it's always going to happen, and it has to play out in the way it does. And especially if you're saying certain lines or certain things in a certain way, you have to sort of act out that. And something that Doctor Who has also done in terms of the infamous timey-wimey kind of thing, and this idea of the Easter egg kind of the extras on the DVD set and kind of playing out in a script of what you said essentially. It's pretty interesting.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
But it's explained really well. It's really kind of easy digestible, really fun to watch, and you've got essentially a rolling ball of characters that come in and out of this that I find this quite amusing and quite fun, and you get various kind of, you know, propositions and ideas of how everyone wants to try and use it and try and cheat it as well in terms of in expanding the 2 minutes into 4 minutes. The result of that is quite interesting, and I would best describe this film essentially as the happier version of Time Crimes. This is a much more better kind of outcome compared to something like that, where that is very much a dangerous kind of journey of a character that goes through various different, very different time travel based kind of ideas in terms of almost simply a couple of hours. You know, that's a couple of hours, and it causes so much damage in terms of cause and effect, and this is only a couple of minutes. I won't say too much what goes on in the film. I'll leave it to you to kind of watch, but it does have some surprises. It does have some interesting kind of play in terms of the concept of time travel and knowing your future and knowing the past, and just has an interesting kind of resolve by the end of it. And I would say it's a much more happier, more charming, cute, delightful kind of little take on that concept. And it has some surprising kind of ideas towards the back half of the film, which I'll leave to the surprise of the film itself. So in terms of the first film, Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes, definitely delivers the hype in terms of what the film was trying to go for. It's nice and fluffy. It's a good sense of location, great characters. Despite how many characters are in this, it utilizes them very well. It explains the concepts very well, and it has some pretty cool ideas thrown in there. And I think it does a really good job for the time run that it goes for. And I would definitely revisit this film again and re-explore it for sure. And I Now, cut to 3 years later in 2023, we have River. This is a follow-up with a similar kind of concept of another 2-minute kind of, window. This time around, it is a kind of a Groundhog Day situation. We have a single location within the mountains, a kind of a hotel kind of location, and you've got various staffs and chefs and guests kind of thing in this kind of little location. And essentially, you've got a mystery. We've got a 2-minute kind of Groundhog Day cycle that resets all the characters in their place over and over and over again. However, the weather and the environment around them carries on as normal. So it starts off sunny and then it starts to get raining and snowing, and basically the elements are still carrying on as normal, but they are stuck in this infinite time loop over and over. And basically the same kind of concept again within the first one is essentially a load of characters, very well handled in terms of individually identifying who they are, having their troubles and why they're there essentially, and kind of relationships and kind of, what desires and things they want to try and do, and things they kind of, in a rut of. And again, it's very charming, very delightful, very well handled, and just very, very funny, and just clever characters, trying to figure out the situation is, going through the paces of a typical kind of time travel Groundhog Day situation, similar to kind of Bill Murray's kind of experience doing everything. It doesn't go too heavy on the dark side of it. It does have some darker moments, granted, for sure, and just have some more moments of escalation, but it's keeping it quite simple and really kind of exploring it. But I like how kind of funny the film is in terms of this kind of situation where these two characters are kind of stuck in the time loop, having rice, having these kind of a meal, and basically they kind of some of the main characters in the film essentially are waiters and servers, and they're saying, please enjoy the infinite amount of food, and just one of the many benefits of the hotel and then the location, and just kind of selling it as a kind of a enjoy it while it is. We don't know why we're in a 2-minute loop. We don't know why this is going on forever, but enjoy it. You've got infinite rice essentially, and it's kind of selling this as a package, and doing things maybe they wouldn't usually do, or say things they wouldn't usually say. And it's just this idea of these characters have got some sort of problem, or they've got something they want to do or say, or they're trying to figure out something, and essentially they're giving an opportunity to really kind of explore that. You've got a writer who wants to try and write this book, and he's getting writer's block, and he's getting pressured by the kind of the publisher, and that plays into it quite well. You've got someone who wants to leave Japan and go to France and wants to cook French cuisine. It's quite funny. And you've got a blossoming kind of relationship aspect to it. This woman who wants to kind of devour her love to this man that she basically kind of is infatuated with, and that's explored throughout the film. And then you've got haikus, you've got characters around it, and it's very clever how it's presented, and it's very, very funny, and everything is used to a really good effect in terms of this 2-minute window. And I think it covers everything that a person probably would do or say or do within that 2 minutes, and they're trying to figure out what's caused this 2 minutes. Within the first one, it's just an infinite 2 minutes within these two monitors. That is explored, it is explained why, and there is an interesting payoff to that. This film has the same idea. So if you've seen the first film, you kind of know it has some sort of interesting kind of third act twist, and it does do that very, very well. And I think it's quite charming and quite funny and really, really nice. I like that. It adds on to the ideas of what the first one was doing. Again, very well done, very well handled. Really enjoyable. I'd definitely recommend it for sure. That's been my thoughts and impressions on these two films in terms of Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes and River. Both films are available on the streaming services, so go and check them out in terms of Amazon UK or Channel 4, or go and pick up the third window editions, definitely for sure. In terms of Blu-ray releases, hopefully he will do that third movie and to see what he would do as a final entry, how he would explore 2 minutes in a different scenario, different kind of setting. I'll be curious to see what he would do with that. One of the really cool things about this kind of follow-up, this kind of anthology kind of sequel, is that they bring back most of the cast from the first one, playing different characters, of course, and we have some new characters also involved in it as well alongside, which I think is really cool, and nice to see them back and playing different roles and expanding upon their performances, which I think is a really cool thing. So what are your thoughts and impressions on these two films? Please comment down below. Do you recommend any other time travel based concept, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Germany or Spain or anything along those lines? Any really cool sci-fi time travel concept indie movies maybe out there that I've yet to see? Please comment down below. Love to know your thoughts and impressions. So in time, guys, I'm Amphlett Reviews. Signing out.